I'm going to be discussing the products provided, as well as how the difference comes down to mission focus, specifically Air Force mission thresholds, mission classification and value of what aircraft carry, the weather view, as well as ground observations in remote locations, air refueling, deployed weather, and finally, hurricane hunters. So products provided are very similar between NWS and military weather, as well as the tools that we use. So we make weather briefs, otherwise known as mission weather products, as well as something called flight weather briefings, known as the 175-1. These are made for anything outside of the local flying area. We also make MES, or mission execution forecasts, which are used in the local flying area. And of course, we tailor these to a pilot's flight plan. Tools, like I said, they're very similar. We use the Gibson Ridge radar, Mark 4B satellite, SIGMET, AirMet, PIREP. The only noticeable difference would be we have a weather website known as IWAWS that's created by the 557th Weather Wing. It basically integrates all of this weather information, such as satellites, the ability to flight plan, SIGMET, etc. But it's very useful because we can use it in deployed locations. Moving on to USAF mission thresholds, aircraft categories define how we tailor our brief. So, for example, each airplane has its own category, and we look for turbulence, icing, takeoff thresholds, landing thresholds. However, our integration comes more on the type of mission. So, for example, ceilings and visibility play in a lot to the type of mission. So, for intel, surveillance, and reconnaissance, we're going to be making mission products that support poor visibility, fog, low ceilings, anything that would enhance their ability to perform ISR. Whereas close air support is different in the sense that our weather support is focused on good weather and anything that aircraft can do to perform close air support. But there's more to it in the sense that we're also doing weather forecasts for close air support, the aircraft combined with fire and movement of ground forces. So what that might look like is it might be good weather out. However, it might have rained 6 inches in 12 hours, and now traffic ability for our ground forces is impacted because it's muddy. The best way I can explain what we do comes down to search and rescue. So for a search and rescue, let's say this is in a deployed location, we don't get to forecast based on chance of thunderstorms or 20% chance of rain. We have to say yes or no, go or no go. Oftentimes, it could be forecasting for the max turbulence an aircraft can take in a very narrow window in order to rescue a hostage. That's what we're here for. We're integrated with these missions in deployed locations to make them successful. So moving into another aspect of mission thresholds is greater potential to divert aircraft to more mission-essential locations mid-flight. This means that sometimes our weather support can be more spontaneous, such as diverting aircraft that are performing an ISR mission for close air support if they have that ability, as well as medevac purposes. Medevac purposes could be very spontaneous where we don't have time to make a weather brief. We need to be attentive and aware of the weather that's happening around us to help them get someone home safely. Classification and value. So some missions are secret in nature, and military weather personnel have classifications such as top secret or secret that National Weather Service, I'd say, would not, so they wouldn't be able to integrate into these classified missions. As well as, so the value of what is carried on each aircraft also ties risk into what we do. Because of warfighting equipment being carried, people, explosives, humanitarian aid, we really need to balance the risk when we are making our forecasts. Moving on to the weather view. Something I think is very interesting is how far-reaching National Weather Service and Air Force weather operations sort of perform or have for a weather view. So Air Force weather operations extend throughout every continent. For example, the 25th Operational Weather Squadron is located in Tucson at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, and they handle weather for Western United States as well as South America, otherwise known as U.S. Southcom. There are also weather flights, which I'm a part of, and detachments. And to say what's similar is National Weather Service also operates on a broader range with the United States and territories of Guam and Puerto Rico. However, research is covered worldwide, so it's similar but different in the sense of what our focus is. Air refueling is also very similar. For example, we're also limited to specific air refueling tracks. We're also forecasting for icing, turbulence, clouds for both aircraft. However, our capabilities extend to deployed locations. So speaking of deployed locations, a lot of our support has so much to it. We are the Airfield Weather Operations focal point. We are integrated with operational missions. What this can look like, for example, in Korea, we actually maintain our own deployable radar and conduct maintenance on our own sensors. We also contract out next-gen sensors to improve model data, as well as record climatology for austere environments. What that can look like is, for example, making rules of thumb or forecasting approaches for flooding in the Wadi region of Djibouti when there's rainfall 30 miles out in the Ethiopian mountains. So a lot of observations and a lot of data is coming in to essentially also improve our models. Other missions where we integrate with include RPA takeoff and landing. We're making very specific tailored forecasts for that, as well as asymmetric warfare, such as supporting our Rangers, SEALs, Joint Task Forces with weather equipment. We also support the Army, where we make forecasts for flooding and dust storms and ground conditions. Finally, I'd like to say that when we are setting up a new airfield or a new location, we are some of the first on the ground to help set up for support. Now, probably the most well-known aspect of weather is the 53rd Weather Reconnaissance Squadron, otherwise known as the Hurricane Hunters. They're located in Biloxi, Mississippi at Keesler Air Force Base, where they work with pilots that fly the Whiskey Charlie 130 Juliet to fly right into the eye of a hurricane. But as for hurricane information, we get that straight from NWS. What we use it for is weather teams essentially advise the base commander, depending on the strength of the hurricane, to recommend timing for everyone to shelter in place, thus suspending operations while the hurricane comes through. Weather personnel end up working through these events and essentially give the go-ahead to return to base. To conclude, there's a lot of similarities in weather analysis and products provided. However, because our focus is more on mission thresholds and what type of mission is happening, we really tailor our weather support for these situations. This is why our aviation forecasts reported may differ from what NWS has reported, because we're forecasting for these thresholds. And a lot of this integration happens for many kinds of missions in the U.S. and deployed. Finally, Hurricane Hunters conduct tropical storm reconnaissance with pilots flying the Whiskey Charlie 130 Juliet. And with that, I've left my contact info here. If anyone would like it or anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I am very used to giving the quickest brief, so hopefully I help cut down some time. Thank you all so much for inviting me, and I really look forward to listening to the other briefs.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Angelica. We are happy to have you here. And does anyone have any questions? All right, I'm not seeing any questions, but again, thank you so much. We are going to be going to lunch now. We are going to be leaving about an hour for lunch, so if everyone could be back here about 12:25, sorry, that would be Pacific time because I'm in Pacific. We're looking at then 1935 UTC. We're a little bit behind schedule here, but we're working on getting back on track. And we're going to be kind of speeding up the afternoon a little bit so that we don't have you guys out too late. So if we can all get back here, like I said, it'd be 1925 UTC. That is 12:25 p.m. for Pacific, 1:25 for Mountain. And I'll let you guys figure out the rest. Again, thank you. Enjoy lunch. And we're going to just have a little slide on the screen. So if you come back, you'll know when we're getting going again. Thanks, everyone.